Hello, good people of YouTube. Mountbatten here, and today we're taking a look back at a battleship that was quite simply the best battleship in the game upon its release, and that is the Tier 10 tech line British battleship, the Conqueror. This ship was beyond just stupid and blatantly overpowered when this ship came out. And this was the bane of many a Tier 10 player's existence for a very long time. It took them forever to nerf this thing. And good God, those of you that were around in, what was it, 6.9, 6.10, 6.11, when the British BBs were released, this ship probably, you don't have too many fond memories of this ship unless you were playing it. And of course we got the Thunder, the unholy child of the Conqueror. But anyway, we're going to take a look at the Conqueror today, talk about her history with the game and how she has evolved over the, good God, 6.12, and we're about to go on, what, 11.2 here in, I think, this week or next week. Been quite some time since the Conch's been out, but yeah, we're going to take a look at her today and see how she does in today's World of Warships and all that jazz. So, let's look at the ship's history real quick with the game. So she was added in update, I think it was 6.10. Okay, and when this ship came out in 6.10, good God. So, Conqueror in her release form, her citadel was below the waterline. She has this rather poor armor scheme, except for, of course, the citadel being below the waterline, because she's absolutely coated in 32 millimeters of armor, and that's still very much true today, although her citadel has been changed today. So, coated in 32, which means, of course, many a shell will be pinning you when it comes to HE, and she actually has a fairly low HP pool. She has, well, oh god, I don't think she's the lowest anymore, because there's incomparables out now too. So she has 82,900 hit points at tier 10, which is quite low, and the incomparable has, I do believe, less than that. I think she's in the 70,000, and then the Schlieffen has like 75,000. So hey, she's no longer the lowest HP pool at tier 10 anymore. 82,900, which again at the time was the lowest HP pool for a tier 10 battleship. Most tier 10 battleships are much closer to 100,000 hit points. So coated 32, 82,900 hit points on a tier 10 battleship. What makes up for this? Well, the super heal. The Conqueror gets a super heal. Now, it does only heal 10% of citadel damage back, but besides that, it can absolutely just print you a new ship, as you'll see me do several times in the match you're watching in the background right now. Now, the match you're watching in the background right now is actually a pretty terrible match for me. I seem to always have the wrong type of ammo loaded when a said target was presented to me. When I would have done great with HE, I had AP loaded. When I had AP loaded, I would have done great. I'm sorry, when I had HE loaded, I would have done great with AP, vice versa, for most of this match, unfortunately. But you do absolutely get to see how tanky this ship can be when she's allowed to use all four of her heals. Now, of course, back in the day, too, we had the premium heals and the standard heals. And her premium heal time, the super heal, you could have it every 80 seconds with the premium repair party. 80 seconds! Yeah! Now, that was one of the first things that was nerfed in, I believe, like 2 patches later, in 6.12. That was increased from 80 to 120 seconds on the premium heal, and from 120 to 180 seconds on the standard heal. And her detectability was nerfed as well. When this ship was released, you could get this tier 10 battleship's detection down to, I believe, like 11.2, which back then was, of course, unheard of for a battleship to be that stealthy. But of course now we have several very stealthy battleships at tier 10, like the Incomparable, yet again, who can get her concealment down to 10-ish kilometers, I do believe. And of course the Schlieffen now, who can get hers down to 12.5. But even today, Conqueror is still quite stealthy. Now you can get her, if you have the module and concealment skill, down to 12.3, which is, again, still very stealthy for a tier 10 battleship. Now on top of that too, so on top of having a citadel that's below the waterline, having a god tier heal for a battleship, and being a super stealthy battleship upon release, she also has her main battery guns. Now, the Conqueror and the British BBs have these absolutely insane British HE shells, which is very strange considering that the British cruiser line, which was out before the battleship line, has no HE. And they had their good AP, and the Minotaur AP with the improved pin angles and such, and the insane fire rates and all that. So the British line at this time isn't really known for its HE. Even the British DDs, when they came out, they're known for having their good AP that's good for dealing with other DDs. But when the British battleships come out, suddenly they're great HE spammers. Because the main battery guns, if you want to build into them, Conqueror has 12 419mm, so 16-inch guns, with a reload time, if you put the module on, of 26.4 seconds. Which is very, 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 very good. Now, the turret's 180 time isn't that great at 43.1 seconds. Maximum dispersion isn't that great either at 281 meters at 24.3 kilometers. But again, you have a 26 second reload to offset that, and none of this has changed. None of the figures about the guns were ever nerfed or buffed since the Conqueror was released, so this is how it was back in the day. So these 16-inch shells that fire every 26 seconds, and you get 12 of them, they have a 49% fire chance on them if you have the fire flag equipped, and that's without I don't think they can even take that or not. Yeah, that is without Demolition Expert. I'm sorry, you can take it, but I don't have it on my Conqueror right now. So you can have a 50% fire chance on your Conqueror. Actually 51, because I'm missing the second fire flag. So my bad. You can have a 51% fire chance on your Conqueror with 12 16-inch shells that fire every 26.4 seconds before Adrenaline Rush kicks in. And these HE shells are pretty nutty. On top of that 49 or 51% fire chance, you have a maximum damage of 7,200. And of course that is Citadel damage, but that's still absolute great HE alpha. And of course they have great pins too. You can pin 105mm with these 16-inch shells. And again, every 26 seconds you're sending these shells downrange. So Conqueror is quite the fire starter. Now, what's also annoying is, and I'm not really sure if it's the British HE or, of course, the ship that spews this much HE is going to do this. This ship's absolutely great at just ripping secondaries and AA guns off of their target. I've had a match where, and it's somewhere on the channel, I have no idea what video it's in, but it's out there. When I was in a Montana, I took one salvo from a Conqueror, all my AA was destroyed. In one frickin' salvo. That's frickin' nuts. Now, the AP is actually not bad either. It is the British Short Fuse BB AP, which of course means the shells have a shorter fuse time on them, which means they travel less further into the target's armor before they go off. This is, of course, great for dealing with cruisers. Unfortunately, it doesn't really apply to DDs. When I heard this originally, I thought, oh, cool. So, like, the AP is going to be good for dealing with DDs. Nope. Of course, because we have the DD versus BB AP shell ratio. I think it's 10% of the maximum damage of your BB's AP shells will be applied to the DDs, even if you full-on pin them, which, of course, you rarely do with Battleship caliber guns. But against cruisers, it's great. You will citadel a lot of cruisers with these 16-inch shells. And against battleships, it's pretty darn good, too. Because you can shoot at the bow and the stern, and you'll still get full pins, because the fuse will not... because the shell will not go through the thin bow and stern armor of said battleship, and then, you get an overpin. It will explode on the inside of that stern and bow. So that is good, too, but it's less punchy. You won't be able to citadel battleships at range. You can still citadel battleships from my experience with the Conqueror. It's just you got to be very, very, very close, like within 10 or so kilometers. And of course, too, it depends on the target you're shooting at. You're going to have a much harder time getting good pins off of a very well-armored citadel versus something like the Yamato, if you know where the cheek's at, or another Conqueror now with the raised citadel. But still, if you know what ammo is best for the situation, you can do very, 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 very well in the Conqueror. It's straight up HE spam with the Conqueror is not the way to go, but you can absolutely do perfectly fine if you just HE spam However, in the situation where your AP would have done better, of course, the HE isn't going to do nearly as well. So a good Conqueror player, a scary Conqueror player, is one that you see firing both HE and AP. That's the guy you need to run from. The AA, it's all freaking 40mm Bofors. There's no close range AA on this ship. It's just all Bofors, all medium and long range AA. So, yeah, you're doing your maximum AA damage at your medium range, which, I mean, it's pretty good because you are doing all of your damage at medium range, but when the aircraft come in, you're not doing any increased damage. And of course the secondary mounts, which I didn't even mention for on the main battery guns, it's just useless. They're all there just for your AA. They are dual purpose. I've gotten a secondary kill one time in a Conqueror on a DD that was at like 100 health, but yeah, absolutely not a secondary ship. Alright, her maneuverability, she goes 31 knots with a speed flag, so she's a little bit slower than your average tier 10 battleship. And she has a turning circle radius of 940 meters, and she has a rotor shift time of 17.3 seconds. And her concealment, like I mentioned, with a full build on it today, is 12.3 kilometers. Alright, so the biggest nerf to Conqueror was when they raised her Citadel. Now, this happened a full patch and a half after the Conqueror was released. This was a pretty big nerf, but when they did this, they turned around and gave it the old cooldown times on the heal. They reduced it from 180 seconds to 120 seconds. And of course, when the premium consumables were removed, she now has an 80-second cooldown time on the heal, which you can get down to like 76, 75 seconds if you run just the flag on it. So you have that super heal now. Oh, and they also buffed the heal too. The non-Citadel damage was changed from 65% recovery to a 75% recovery. So, yeah. So it was a big deal that the Citadel was raised and the heal buff to compensate for it. Well, because the Conqueror back in the day was quite literally one of the most unpunishable ships in the game. Because what you could do with it, and it's not like you would do amazingly well, but you would still do pretty darn good, normally be at the top of the leaderboards with the Conqueror just from the sheer amount of damage you do with it. You could sit quite comfortably in the back of the pack on your team, sit broadside on to the enemy team, and just spam HE. With the God tier HE on the Conqueror, with the 51% fire chance, the insane HE alpha damage, you can just spam HE at whatever you wanted. And it doesn't matter, of course, how you angle with HE, because it's all about setting fires with the Conqueror. And even if you were angled to where not all of them pinned you, you were still eating pretty good HE damage because of the insane HE alpha. And when the HE would pin you, good God, I mean, I've had salvos, well, I've been on the receiving end of salvos where the Conqueror just easily does like 10-15k to my battleship when it was properly angled, where of course it would, if it had been AP, probably would have just bounced or of course overpinned through the superstructure. But no, because it's the Conqueror's HE, 10-15k, easy peasy. And of course there goes my AA and secondaries as well. And of course playing against this in a German battleship is probably one of the most infuriating things you can do in the game, even still today. Now, when they nerfed the Citadel and raised it and such, that made the ship a lot more punishable, because now, rather than being annoyed by the ship that it's only spotted when it wants you to see it because it has a 12-kilometer detection range, and even when you do see it, you can now shoot at it with your battleship. You're not going to Citadel it because it's, of course, doesn't have a Citadel because it's below the waterline. You can now Citadel it when it's visible and do a lot of damage in return. And, of course, too, add that exposed Citadel on the 32mm plating up and down the Conqueror. It's not as tanky as it used to be. Like, this thing used to be freaking impossible to kill unless you all dogpiled on it or you got a DD to go around there and shove some torpedoes up its stern, because again, when this thing was out, we had RTS CVs and having 40mm Bofors and having your maximum AA essentially at your medium range, where I think it was at its maximum range because they're all 40mm. I don't know. A's been changed so many freaking times, I can't remember exactly how the mechanics work back then. But yeah, it was really good against CVs. It was roughly on par with Montana. I put them both in a training room with like 12 midways, and they both shot down about the same number of planes with a full AA build on it. It was really hard to punish, but thankfully that's been nerfed. So how does she do in today's World of Warships? Well, the background matches should have answered your question. This ship is still very good at being an all-flank kiter. Like, pushing into a Conqueror is one of the most just uncomfortable things that you have to do in this game. Because a Conqueror player now that's aware of their Citadel, you can just stay angled. The gun angles aren't terrible in the Conqueror. They're pretty decent, but, they're not the best. And again, you still have that 12.5 kilometer concealment, so when you're on the kiting flank, you just keep gunning your ship away from the enemy team, and it's not like it's, a frickin' Vermont that goes 20 knots. It still goes 31 knots with a speed flag, plenty of speed to keep distance between you and the enemy team. And again, you got the good concealment on top of that. Just burn them, and you can take a lot of hits in the Conqueror, of course, without getting citadeled. And you essentially have 4 Conquerors in your back pocket with those super heals. So it's great for off-flank kiting, and that's why it's used in competitive quite a lot. Because, again, if you don't kill the Conqueror when you see it, it's kind of useless to shoot at it because it's just going to prepare its entire ship with one push of a button. So it's very good for that. It's still a very good ship in today's World of Warships, and it's still, again, with the current meta, with so many players sitting in the back, it's great for dealing damage, and is of course very good at removing cruisers from the match. And the DDs, good God help you if you're in a DD and you get caught by a Conqueror and his RNG complies. Now again, the accuracy of the guns isn't really that great, but when you have a 26-second reload time on these guns, it doesn't really matter too much, especially when you're engaging large targets like cruisers and battleships. But smaller light cruisers and of course DDs are going to be a little bit harder to hit at range. So the ship's still pretty freaking good today. Would I recommend you grind up to it? Absolutely. Now, one of the most unholy creations came out of the Conqueror, and that was the Thunderer. So for those of you that may not know, Conqueror had Thunderer's guns as an upgrade option. You could fit the 18-inch guns on the Conqueror, and you would have 8 18-inch guns at tier 10 with the same fire chance levels that the Thunderer had. Those like 65% fire chance base. Freaking nuts, right? But the guns were abhorrently inaccurate, nowhere near Thunderer levels. I can't remember the exact dispersion values, but it was terrible. It was really only good for like point blank drive-bys with those guns, which is what I used them for. It's pretty stupid. A ship with no citadel and a super heal. Well, what are they going to do to stop you when you're charging another battleship that doesn't have torps? Shoot you? Okay, I don't care. I'm just going to repair all my ship anyway. That's the only thing they were really good for. They were kind of good for HE spamming because, again, the accuracy wasn't all that great, but they still had a pretty decent reload time. I don't think it was like 22 seconds like the Thunderer has. I think it was like 25, 26 still. I can't remember exactly. It was a very, very, very long time ago. But yeah, there's kind of just a meme thing. Then they removed those guns, took the Conqueror hull, then tweaked it a bit. Then we got Thunderer. But that's the Conqueror. It's still a very good ship. Is it the best tier 10 or absolutely dominating like it was back in the day? No, that's been nerfed. It's a much more balanced ship now. It's still frustrating to deal with, but it's relieving that, again, after, what was that, patch 8.6, 8.7, I think, when she got nerfed. After that, it's a much better ship to fight against because you can actually do something against it in return because, again, citadel damage is still doesn't restore like the Minotaur does. It's still just 10%. So once you sit it, of course, that's going to hurt it a lot more, and you can finally get some revenge on it after it's burned away like half of your ship. But anyway, guys, that's the Conqueror. Let me know what you guys think about this ship in the comments down below. Hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, make sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel. We're on our way to 35,000 subs, and I can't thank you guys enough for that. Hope you have a wonderful Tuesday, wonderful rest of your week, and I hope to catch you guys in the next one.